what's shaking, Warfighter Nation? Ron here with Warfighter Ranch and Isaiah 6:8. It's been a minute, but we're here with our Memorial Day message for you. Well, it's 2020, and I suppose that it's a great time to look briefly in hindsight. You already know that I'm always telling you to look for the message in the mess. And during this season of our lives, during periods of long separation, some lonely in isolation, where we're forcibly distanced from one another, I see one glaring universal truth that's not only rooted in biblical doctrine, but playing out every single day in every single one of our lives right now. We're craving the company of each other. We really are better together, as iron sharpens iron. As a guy who served in Mogadishu nearly 3 decades ago, my eyes and ears naturally, I think, remain ever alert for any news related to my brothers and sisters of that conflict. I see their successes, their struggles, and even further tragedy that befalls them or their loved ones. Recently, there was a noteworthy event that lit up my radar like a Christmas tree. Its crosshairs hit me center mass and shot me straight through the heart, as no doubt it did many of you. I'm speaking to the vandalization of Medal of Honor recipient, Delta sniper, hero of Mogadishu, Gary Gordon's gravestone in Pennsylvania. At first glance, the shock sparked some old, nearly dead coals that began glowing within my chest, and pretty rapidly too. I simmered over this for a while as I tried to move on with the evening, but it was late in the day, and this was still pretty much fresh in the news cycle and in my mind. Helen and I went out for our evening walk, but even that left me with some built-up steam, so I slept on it. Undoubtedly, it certainly disturbed no one more than Gary's wife, Carmen, who posted the original article. So here's my thoughts on this. Buckle up, Buttercup. At the risk of sounding cliche, I'm only stating what I think is obvious when I say 1. Yes, it chaps my hide that anyone would desecrate anyone's grave, because that's the resting place of one of God's children and obviously a beloved member of an American family. But anyone messing with a Gold Star wife, well, I can't think of much else that would be considered the cardinal sin within overall warfighter culture. I just wish this mentality permeated through all of American culture. 2. While on the one hand I'm in awe at the audacity of the perpetrator, I could say with a straight face that I'm completely shocked. I just can't. Since the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, or Cain and Abel, no sin of any kind should really be that shocking to us. The Word tells us that there's nothing new in the world. After all, we do live in a day and age where many Americans, though outraged, can admit to being somewhat desensitized to certain issues like human trafficking, child exploitation, and even those heinous crimes against humanity, such as the Caliphate formerly known as ISIS, and their videos of shock jock media fame. We all hold certain things as sacred to us, and this is one of them. But at the end of the day, a grave marker, a headstone, a piece of granite is just that. It can be clean and will no doubt be brought back to look better than ever soon. And it is by no means the legacy of a world-class warrior the caliber of Gary Gordon, or even a spark of light through a keyhole into the amazing individual and family man that he was. As you read Carmen's words, even now, nearly 27 years later, you can't help but feel the love pour out of her words, even during what is undoubtedly a terribly undeserved heartache. and love still wins the day, and evil still loses in the end. I've made mention of it many times, but it still holds true, and it fills my insatiable need for a little bit of irony. But I've read the end, and spoiler alert, evil really does lose in the end. In this recent event, while it leaves our hearts temporarily bruised, we will march forward together, as we always have. His deeds, love of country, his family, fellow warfighters, all of these are duly recorded in our world's history for all time. And let's not forget that God witnessed every bit of his heroics, along with his teammate Randy Sugart, as they unselfishly and unhesitatingly laid their lives down to protect others. This is, of course, honored among the highest traditions of our service, honor, and valor within our beloved warfighter community. But it's certainly not the only place we've seen it, is it? John 15:13 tells us, "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." The words of Christ himself, embodied by his own actions, to the very end to fulfill not only God's will, but sacrificing everything for others. And in case you were wondering, it's no mistake that I draw this parallel between these two examples, because every one of those who fell during their service brings this verse to mind every time. And while those of us who were blessed enough to live through those engagements on battlefields far from home, we have to remember that the ultimate goal for all of these warriors was once the same as our own: to make it home. Home to their spouses, home to their children, home to their hometowns. And because they did not make it back home with us, we often feel adrift or deeply sad, especially on days like Memorial Day. I know I have fallen prey to this mentality many times, but not this year. This year will be different. This year, you won't mope around the house, lost in the sea of self-pity or depression. This year needs to be different. This year will be different. Like many of you, I have lost friends both during war as well as in its wake here at home. I was having a discussion over dinner with friends the other day regarding Memorial Day. The couple and their 3 children accompanied Helen, Abby, and myself and I to grab some amazing Mexican food the other night. At a table for 8, with me as the only veteran, as the topic of Memorial Day came up, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck, slightly longer due to the lockdown, start to stand at attention. My warfighter sense was definitely tingling. Over the years, I've learned to listen more and speak less, and so I listened. And then out of the blue, there it was. The question, "Hey Ron, what do you think about Memorial Day?" I have waited for years for that question to fall out of the sky like that, and I must have practiced my elevator speech in my head about 1,000 times. For some reason, it was not quick at the ready. So I winged it. I started with my thoughts on Memorial Day may be very different to anyone else's at this table. A few nodded in silent agreement at what I can only think was something of an understanding. So I continued. I started off explaining the basic difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and that Veterans Day was for the veteran and Memorial Day was for the fallen. It seems pretty simple, but in 2020, it's hard to believe how many people misconstrue the two or melt them both into one. I also emphasize the importance immediately of not saying things like, "Happy Memorial Day." When they asked me why not, I simply stated that Memorial Day is a reminder to honor those who have fallen. I went on to further explain that most veterans either know or served in a unit where somebody had fallen on the battlefield. So far, everyone was tracking. I asked them to put themselves in the shoes of the veteran hearing those words. Then I politely broke it down Barney style only with a slightly different translation. Happy reminder of one of the worst days of your life day. Their slightly somber yet understanding nods, even from the children, told me that my message had hit home. When I linked the two ideas, the thought of saying Happy Memorial Day quickly dissipated as it now made no sense. But I don't get angry when I do hear it. I'm not even remotely upset, because the onus is not on the civilian populace to understand our culture. The responsibility is ours to educate them. After all, who's better qualified to do that than we are? So on this Memorial Day, I will hang my Somalia veteran flag, say a prayer for the fallen, and in their honor, enjoy the day. I will have a barbecue and enjoy the day with friends and family. And while we remember our fallen heroes, raise a glass for them and enjoy the day fully. Squeeze every drop of life out of that day and every other day to remember and honor their sacrifices and live our lives the way you know our fallen battles would have wanted us to. They may be gone from this world. They are basking in the glory of God for their humble and priceless sacrifices. They're no longer in pain, and they're experiencing a peace and understanding that defies our comprehension. If you look back from the beginning of this message to now, at some level, we've gone through the entire grief cycle over the incident of Gary Gordon's grave. Our grief is a result of loving something or someone greater than ourselves when they are gone, or when these egregious soul wounds occur to their loved ones. Again, it's all about love. And few do that better, deeper, or more sincerely than the Warfighter Nation. So from Team Warfighter, Warfighter Ranch, Isaiah 6'8", and Team Breland, please have a blessed and fruitful Memorial Day weekend. We love you all very much. God bless you.